It's every man for himself. It's every man and woman, I guess, you know, to be perfectly fair, for themselves. If you've got somebody walking through your front yard, angrily screaming and yelling, cops aren't going to come. Apparently, no laws or no trespassing signs or gates are effective anymore. Private property means nothing. So you got to take the law into your own hands. And we knew this was coming. We didn't know it was coming this quickly, but we knew it was coming. When you have the police being attacked at every angle, when you have calls for the police department to be defunded, when you have like hundreds and hundreds of police officers all over the country just calling it quits, saying, hey, screw you guys. You don't want us? We wash our hands of it all. We're taking early retirement and heading out, grabbing their boat and going fishing. When that's happening, eventually you're going to, sooner or later, and it looks like it's sooner, you're going to have a lawless society. And when you have when there's no one else out there to uphold the law, then Americans will take the law into their own hands. A couple lawyers who've been very graciously deemed Ken and Karen by the internet had to walk out of their home carrying guns. Ken armed with an AR-15. Karen carrying some kind of handgun, looked like to be like some kind of revolver, walking out of their homes in the middle of the day, broad daylight, brandishing their weapons to protect their home from angry protesters who broke into their neighborhood, burst through a gate, were on private property, and were marching and screaming and banging drums through the streets in an angry attempt to force the mayor of St. Louis to resign. In order to get to her house, they had to walk by this beautiful, I mean, it's a mansion made of marble, a Renaissance palazzo that had been built here, and the owners of the home, a couple named Mark and Patty McCloskey, heard what was going on, saw these protesters, a massive crowd on private property. They had no idea where they were coming from. They had no idea what they were doing there, but having watched television and having seen what's been going on in cities all over the country, in Minneapolis, in Chicago, in Philadelphia, in Seattle, in Washington, D.C., they were hell-bent on protecting their home with their AR-15, with their handgun, and they stood in front and they started yelling at the protesters to just move along, just keep walking. They stood there with their guns and they told everybody to move along. And the protesters moved along. And the protesters did not spray paint BLM or F the police or, anything else on their beautiful marble columns. The protesters did not light fire to their life's work and their dream. The protesters did not smash anything or poop in their yard or try to tear down the statues of Neptune and Venus that they had standing outside of their picturesque home. Because Mark and Patty McCloskey were executing their Second Amendment rights to bear arms and to protect their home and their property and their lives. They've invested 30 years of their lifetime they will never get back, and they've invested millions of dollars in cash that they will never get back, and they'll be damned if some angry protesters who are mad at the mayor are going to come by and do whatever it is they do to something they've worked so hard for. And as smart homeowners these days, they've got guns. They've got weapons. They know how to use them, and they're not afraid to show people, hey, we are not going down without a fight.